I've been an entrepreneur since 2016, and what I realized is I wasn't an entrepreneur until last year. I've been a wantrepreneur all these years, and the one skill that took my business from just a couple $100,000 a year to over $1 million in revenue in 2024 without grinding, it wasn't the skill of sales. It was actually the ability to sell one-to-many. I'm excited to have back on the department, Macy and Kat, AKA the Sales Girl.
Understanding your people is the most important thing that you could ever do. It's leverage for life.
When you start speaking a different language, you start being someone different to walk towards that result.
We didn't know how to do presentations one-to-many. Like that was a totally different skill set.
And what people don't realize is when they say, hey, there could be a future that you don't even think in your mind right now, what they are doing is they are planting a seed of possibility.
How do you know what to say when you got 3 people in front of you or 300 people or 3,000 people in front of you?
So my favorite way to do this, in my opinion, is...
So excited to have Macy and Kat back on the department. Thank you guys for being back in Vegas.
Listen, this is one of our favorite places to be.
We're back home.
Home sweet home.
In the department.
I get this big question for a lot of people that come to my world, listen to this podcast, watch this podcast. And it's people who have a desire to make content and they just think money's going to happen. Like they just think the money will follow, which that is like one principle is like, just create, add value, put yourself out there, and like money can follow, but you could be hyper intentional early on and make a lot of money with a small audience.
Yeah.
You guys help women. Whoa, 7 a.m. in the morning. You guys help women become better sales, increase conversions, and all that stuff. But there's this concept that we have been exposed to, and it's how we've become successful, and that is selling one-to-many. Can you, when you guys define, or each of you define, what is selling one-to-many?
Yeah, so good. You know, when we first started, the only way that we knew how to sell one-to-many was by looking at the camera face-to-face on Instagram stories. And Reels was not a thing, none of that. So it was like, okay, how can I take what I've talked to someone else about in the back hallways of DMs or wherever, and how can I show other people that this is normal and this is the perspective that you can now have? That is honestly how the entire business was built. The first $1 million was made in one-to-many, but it was in this like back hallway Instagram story style. And that really helped me start to see how those small perspectives are actually the big, like they are the big boulders that people need to be moved in their mind. Like people just think, oh, if I'm talking about my product and selling my offer, the thing that I do, that's working. But the real work, honestly, is moving people in your direction, moving them kind of across that epiphany bridge where they're like, oh, this makes so much sense. And so for us, people have a huge beef with selling. And when you call out the fact that it's actually really noble to be guiding someone through their transformation and you're helping them warm up to it and break down any resistances, that is like, you make the conversation public. And
that's the bar right there.
That's the bar. Yeah. You made the conversation public and all of a sudden you realize how many people are alike, right? Yet their uniqueness like feels really seen.
Yeah. I mean, people, when they think about selling, what they think about is what they say. Would you agree with that?
100.
Okay. So it's like, what do I need to say to get people to say yes? But what we think about when we think about selling is, okay, what is in the way from our words falling on their ears? So we are always like, how do I build value, build value, build value? But if their brains aren't even open to hearing what you have to say, it's falling on deaf ears. And the reason why it's falling on deaf ears is because they have all these mental blocks. And their brains, I want you to think about like a mental map, okay? And this mental map is like the map in which that they drive around to like get the results that they have in their life. But your map looks different because you have different results. And your goal is to get your mental map to look like their mental map. And the only way you can transform their mental map is to know what's deformed. You have to know what's deformed to know what to even transform. And so when we're in these conversations in DMs, what I'm personally listening for, I'm like, what is deformed? What is deformed in their mind right now? And it's things like, like they might not say this, but I can read between the lines where they're like, "Mate, if I make more money than my husband, it's gonna like affect our relationship." They might not say those words, but I can feel it. Or like, how embarrassing is it for me to be selling something when I have to go to dinner with my friends tomorrow and they like watch my Instagram stories and now I have to face them? Like, it's so embarrassing. So that deformity is going to affect how they listen to our content. And so our number one job in selling one-to-many is to transform what is deformed. And you can really only do that through those conversations. Like, truly, that is how it's revealed. Because we live our life like through our mental mapping. And we just think it's normal to make a lot of money. And we think it's normal just to, you know, walk around and literally money being a byproduct of how you talk. That's normal to us. And so when someone says something that is not matched with my brain, and my face is like, what? That's how I know that's my bone. That's my bone I need to go gnaw on, is how I think about it. Like, how I need to like process it and marinate with it and massage this idea so that I can have the content that's going to transform their minds.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about it like in seasons, like I have, when I do these conversations, I have a lot of like my inner circle in my mind.
Yes.
Because, you know, they're in a season that I once was in. And it seems like it takes, when you know you don't know you're in the season of potentially the one-on-one time with people when people are talking to you, because you're so busy just helping this one person and you're not thinking, let me take this and, you know, use it.
Yeah, exactly. It's leverage. Every conversation, every nugget, every hesitation they have, every, you know, thing that is just exciting to them or scary to them, that is so much leverage for that public conversation. It's insane.
It's funny how it just intertwines with content too, because I find that like even copy and content, it's in the conversation. So a practice we do when I have a workshop is I actually filmed, I separate everybody into groups of two, and I say, you guys have a conversation about each other's expertise, and we record it. And it's not about the fancy, but it's so that they can watch it back and say like, oh my goodness, I just said the 3 books that helped.
So
like,
good.
You know,
cool.
But why is this person even asking the question to begin with? You know, like the thing is like most people aren't good listeners, and that's why they're probably not good at selling.
Whoa, yeah.
That's so good. One of the things that we love to show people is that when you're listening to, you know, have a sales conversation or to show that transformation, most people listen to respond, not to understand, right? They're thinking about, what do I say? How do I need to sound persuasive or smart? And so just thinking about yourself is going to be the thing that actually keeps you in the way from like creating your life in your business what you want, because you're not even helping other people by not reading between the lines and understanding what they're really trying to say.
Yeah, we just I did a call with our girls yesterday, and we do a lot of role play. And 2 girls were doing a role play, and the person that was selling, she was trying to force the conversation in a certain direction. I was like, why do you keep going this way? Like, she obviously didn't say that. Why are you going this way? She was like, I really want to say this piece of evidence. We call it evidence to prove your point. She's like, I have this great evidence I really want to say. I'm like, you having an agenda right now is totally killing the vibe. And so we always say, like, go in with no agenda. I have no agenda. I'm in your car right now, and I'm willing to go wherever you want to go. That's why you have to really be prepared. And just have an arsenal of evidence where you're like, I have a bunch that I could use right now, and I'm just going to pick the best one for you.
An arsenal of evidence.
Always.
It's so true. Like, and we categorize it a few different ways. Like, there's the product knowledge evidence. There's also payoff knowledge evidence. So for example, like product knowledge content, right? You could go off and tell stories about camera styles and lighting and the mood for the type of brand that you want to have, right? You could go off on all that and the value that someone would be like, oh, I want that. That's amazing. But then there's also payoff knowledge that I think most people are the weakest in, because they don't understand people and they're not listening for the people. But what we really want, let's just say, is surface level more money. Okay, well, what are the byproducts? What are the payoffs of more money? Right? We were just talking about private school, talking about being able to, it could be have a safer car. It could be being able to pay for lessons for your kid and doing multiple lessons because you want them to be well-rounded. And all of a sudden it's distanced itself so far from the offer. But that's the thing that people actually want. And that's when we're talking about evidence. It's like, wow, you actually understand not just what your product can do, but what my life can become. And that's like the real banger when it comes to selling, is those 2 lanes that if anyone like took something away today, it'd be like, go study those 2 lanes of your world and who people can become.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just about game over.
It's so good. Like I actually, on a practical standpoint, what I do is I open up my notes app either during a conversation, if it makes sense to, or after the conversation, and I write down the phrase the person said.
Oh, that's
so
good.
Really good.
yesterday, 2 times yesterday. One was you.
Oh,
You're like, I feel like everything is just downline from being famous.
100%.
And then as somebody taps my shoulder and is like, hey, Omar, can we get a selfie? You know, like,
When I say back to back, I was like, no, that's not even what happened. I said, everything's downstream from becoming famous. And this guy came up to him and said, yo, you're famous from YouTube.
Whoa.
it's funny.
He's like, can I get a picture? I'm like, what is
something
going on?
I feel like you do every time we talk is you show me that more clear, because you say it in a way that's like, oh man, that's probably exactly what so many people are thinking. If I could just be more known.
Oh yeah.
Like that's the thing people want, but it's like, yeah, you got to make videos.
Yeah.
Hey, department fam, wanted to take a brief break from this conversation. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is that, did you know that 75% of the people that watch this podcast on YouTube actually aren't subscribed, which is a high chance that you're not subscribed. So number 1, I want to say thank you for listening or watching the podcast. And number 2, if you can hit that subscribe button, that would be amazing. The second thing is, if you are an entrepreneur, content creator, or somebody looking to make money online, I want to encourage you to come to this online event called the Content to Cash Challenge. This is a special 5-day event that's going to give you access to the system I use in my business to make multiple 6 figures with my content. If you've been desiring to either get your business and brand more exposure, grow a YouTube channel, whatever it is when it comes to video, I would encourage you to jump into the Content to Cash Challenge. We'll be sure to post the link to the challenge down in the show notes or the description. And I want to encourage you to jump into the VIP experience. This will give you access to a 1-hour Q&A call every day of the challenge. This will guarantee myself to answer a personalized question you may have. So I'll see you on the Content to Cash Challenge. Now let's jump back into the conversation.
Well, you know what's cool about like her saying that over and over and over is like, no one will talk about just being famous. No one will talk about being known. I mean, we have one of our amazing clients helps people run paid ads. I'm like, you can literally become famous while you're at the park. Like, so the ad is running for you. YouTube content is compounding for you so that people know you. And it's like, people don't want to talk about it. But of course, you know, Macy's going to talk about it. And
people are uncomfortable saying that word because they think it's like selfish or self-serving.
Yeah.
But you almost have to be like shocking like that for people to listen up.
Yeah.
Think about like if you go back to
Macy World is a
jerk. I kind of want to like splash cold water in your face a little bit. Like if you think about their mental map, okay, they're just driving on autopilot. When you drive home, are you even thinking about how you're driving home? No, not at all. You're just on autopilot doing your thing. You want to say something that makes them be like, skirt, turn to the right, this way. No, you're thinking the wrong way. You're going this way, but the best like world to live in is over here. And that like becoming famous. Oh my gosh, yesterday in the coaching call, one of our girls helps like Christian women date. And we were talking about like titles and stuff. And I was like, honestly, it's like, hey, you know, find the love of your life, like without dating like a band boy.
Literally.
And you should have seen the whole room is Zoom women. Okay. Yep. And they're all nodding their heads, smiling. I'm like, okay, this is obviously a universal thing where you think, okay, the only man that loves the Lord is like, you know, a man on band that's like, but I want a guy that's like gonna go like shoot guns and, you know, kill the deer for me. But that's not possible. So anyway, it's like it has to be jolting. Oh, another girl, she was like, I want to teach women how to like, you know, sculpt their face. I'm like, okay, it's like, you know, do this with and get Ozempic, you know, allegations because your face is like so snatched and like looks so good. And she's like, can I say that? I'm like, I don't know, try.
And then one of the ads that did so well for our last Sell Your Offer challenge was you're one failed launch away from selling feet pics. And it's just funny because like no one wants to talk about it, but everyone's like, dang it, if I just, you know.
Like, how did you know? That's what the comments were. Yeah.
So but it's funny. It just comes from like understanding people.
Yeah, it's just being in touch. Cool. Like you
touch grass, like touch some people, touch conversations.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Everything.
Yeah. So on a, like, I guess, because I imagine so many people are like, okay, this is very esoteric. How do you do this? Let's just go like, how do you do this when you're doing a webinar? Like, how do you know
what to say
when you're like, when you got just 3 people in front of you or 300 people or 3,000 people in front of you?
Well, really comforting to know is that any room of people is made up of a bunch of individual people. And that's why I love a Zoom call. Like if you're doing a webinar, I highly suggest doing it where you can see everybody's faces because you can see them nod. You can see them being puzzled. You know that. You're always looking as well. But like, so my favorite way to do this, in my opinion, is like Kat and I, we used to make webinars every quarter, new ones, which you know how crazy that is, right? That's insane.
Well, I used to think you always needed a new webinar.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's what we did for years. We did 4 webinars.
I felt like we were criminals if we did the same one.
Yes. And so we sold the same concept with 3 different points every single time, 3 different stories. But you know, those points and evidences have now become like our asset that we use all the time. So now I'm so thankful for it. But we'll always start in the middle, right? We have like our 3 points, which are usually 3 beliefs that we want people to believe. 3 beliefs that we want people to believe. Like, for example, one would be like, it's not about sales strategy, it's about sales skill. So any strategy works with sales skill. So we will spend weeks like thinking about, okay, how can we prove this? How can we prove this? How can we prove this? In fact, we have so many times where we'd be sitting in an office and someone would walk in and they'd be like, there seems like to be like tension here. Are y'all okay? But we are like frustrated because it's like in our bodies and we're trying to get it out so clearly. And so it comes off like we're angry, but we're just like frustrated. And I feel like we say this to our students. I'm like, y'all need to be a little more frustrated.
Righteous indignation.
Yeah, y'all need to feel like you're like working toward. And then you know when something comes to you, it's like this release.
Yes,
it's like the best dopamine feeling ever.
Popped a pimple,
it's the best thing ever. It's like my drug of choice, like truly.
You're the greatest MC on a podcast.
I'm sorry,
No,
it's the best.
Yeah.
And so we think through. We find like a point. I'll give you an example about sales strategy and sales skills for just a second, and then we'll like throw out this concept on Instagram stories. And we'll like practice the point on Instagram stories. And they'll be like, okay, we'll kind of get some feedback in DMs. And then we'll be like, okay, let's go make a whole podcast on this. And we'll tease it out even more. And then we're like, okay, now it's ready for the webinar, for the point. We'll do reels on it. I mean, we will take this one point and just beat it to death.
And so when you ask the question about how do you do this on a webinar, like practically, so when Macy's talking about this development of the content and we do it on podcasts or stories and people would come to us and say, well, what about when blank?
Yeah.
So that we would add those lines into the webinar.
Yeah.
And what you might be thinking is, well, but isn't strategy important? But isn't, you know.
But so-and-so says, da-da-da-da-da.
But so-and-so says, exactly. And so then you have to re-engage like your authority, you know, sometimes to like show them, hey, I've thought about what you've thought about. I've heard what you've said. And this is the case.
Yeah.
So you said you were going to give the evidence for that point.
So like, I'll let you give it.
Oh, well, so strategy over skill. Okay, yeah. So people think I need a strategy, and we called it strategy skipping syndrome. Like they would just be like, the next thing. Hey, if you do skill, you can be great wherever you are. And so we did the Tom Brady example. Isn't that right? Yeah. So we would say, if you had the choice to like pick your winner, would you pick Tom Brady with an average playbook or a high school player with the best playbook, like with Tom Brady's playbook? People, who do they pick every time?
Tom Brady.
They picked one with the more skill because he can make it work. He's got the nuance, like position and all this kind of stuff. So all of a sudden it's like, like you're right. You know, and so that's just the case over and over and over. And we have another example of, so we say strategy and skills like juice in a container. You know, I could be drinking coffee out of this. I could be drinking coffee out of a glass mug or ceramic mug. And the question is like, is it a different liquid? Like, is the quality different inside? Or is it just a different experience? Yeah, so TikTok and YouTube are going to be a different experience, but the quality on the inside is like what matters. And so that's that sales content, that thing that they really need to develop. So we just prove our case really over and over and over.
And you're speaking to beliefs. And then you're telling stories that people can connect with.
Yeah.
That's something like Russell told me was like, even if you don't go so like, because that's awesome. That's pro level. Go on podcasts. That's like teaching on other things and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Russell says like Russell says when you have your thing, deliver it, and then look at the transcription and see when the people ask the question at the time of the point.
Oh, cool.
And then when you refine the presentation, include the answer to that question. Like you might be thinking to yourself, and that's how you create the perfect webinar.
Yeah, that's so good. Like another example is people would always say like, you teach conversations, but I want to scale. And I can't scale conversations. And so we think about that point all the time. And We say, your sales message is like your marketing on a megaphone. And we give the example of one of our students named Dylan, the dietitian. She was doing this launch. It wasn't going well. And she ended up getting on sales calls. She's like, hey, I'm opening up, calls last minute. Because she was trying to sell one-to-many and wasn't getting a lot of traction. In one call, the girl said, I like what you do. I think it could be really valuable, but there's so many free resources online. There's all these YouTubers that are dietitians and nutritionists that I could literally just learn so much. And so she had to break the belief that paid and free resources are the same. So she went in on that on podcasts, on emails. She was like, I just sold that one belief that a paid professional is not the same thing as a free resource. And she ended up having an $80,000 launch because of that one conversation.
Crazy.
So that's our
biggest
proof.
one.
Yeah, that's our proof that, hey, conversations are actually the thing that scales.
Yep.
Like if you don't have that, you won't scale.
And you know what's so cool about this? I want to encourage somebody is the reason why we were kind of like, we were almost forced into this life of conversations because we didn't know how to do presentations one-to-many. Like that was a totally different skill set than sales conversations. And so for years we would do these Instagram stories and then try a presentation. The presentation would like go well. People would say, oh my gosh, like you changed my mindset, or that was so helpful.
I learned so much.
They learned so much. And we weren't even teaching tactics, but people would still say that. And so we realized, okay, so then we would actually get people into a Zoom room and have like an info call, like a group sales call. And so we kind of like over time, we were kind of like, I don't want to say bad, but we weren't the famous people who like sell from stage. We were the conversation queens in a sense. And so it started to inform the presentation. And I'm so glad because
it made us who we are.
It really helped us to do those little lines like, and I know what you might be thinking because thousands of conversations later, now we're finally getting better at the one-to-many presentation. But I just really would encourage someone to, even if it feels like it's not working, that's because there's multiple lanes that need to run at the same time. And understanding your people is the most important thing that you could ever do. It's leverage for life.
Yes.
When you do.
Yes. There is.
And people can feel that too.
100. Or they won't find you, or they won't connect with you. Like,
Yeah.
That's right.
Like, cause somebody mentioned it on a call, and he was like, "I just have it. It's really hard for me to use the words that the people I want to reach are using because I don't want to mislead them." And he was just saying it was hard to essentially get in the mind of the people and reach them the way they desire to be reached, so that you can give them what you want.
Because he didn't want to mislead them.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
but I think a part of me was just like, or is that an excuse to like not want to find that out deeper? And like, but I think it's good to know that one-to-one is so good. It's also how I got here, like just helping people one-on-one. And then I was making videos and looking at comments, and it was feeding my arsenal.
Yes.
And now I could speak in specific generalities to people I'm trying to reach.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know what he means by misleading them. I think it's misleading by not.
So it's interesting that, okay, so I was on one of our coaching calls and let me think of the example really quick. But I was telling her too, she helps women prime their body for pregnancy with like hormones and stuff. And I was like, why don't you say, like, you could be pregnant by the holidays? Because, it's that time of year, it's like early in the year. And she's like, but they already want that. Like, I don't want to say what they're thinking because it almost is like, makes it like too easy. Yeah. Like if I give them this, I don't want to say bait, but like if you literally fish with the thing that the fish wants, then that's like gonna.
Scary. She's like scared to do it.
Yeah, it's like self-sabotage. Like she's like, they're already thinking it. So like, I don't want to say that because they already know that they want that. And I was like, what? Like, so it's almost like that mislead thing. Like, well, they're afraid that the fish is going to bite. You know what I mean? But that's actually what they want, is like to give them the answers to what they've been looking for. And I think people just don't do that because there's levels in selling confidence and there's the ability to like use your words and like I put myself out there. And then there's also the confidence to receive.
Yes. To
receive the sale and to take someone's money and just know that there's these different layers of the transaction, right? And I think that's the one where people like him are like, I don't want to mislead them. Like, is that it? Or do you just not feel comfortable receiving him or her into your orbit and then you transform their life? Yeah, that was one for me, and for sure. And I think
one thing to mention here is she's not saying, I guarantee you're going to, have a baby by, whatever. Correct. What she's saying is you could. There could be a way. And what people don't realize is when they say, hey, there could be a future that you don't even think in your mind right now, what they are doing is they are planting a seed of possibility. And when you plant a seed of possibility, like I read in a book called The Last Word on Power, they said the quickest way to reinvent yourself is through language, because the language is the house of being. So when you start speaking a different language, you start being someone different to walk towards that result. So when you say, hey, there could be a way you could be pregnant by Christmas, you start literally acting like a pregnant lady who like takes care of her body and goes to sleep on time and hydrates properly and eats well, which makes you more likely to get pregnant. So you're offering them like this new house that they could live in that they don't even know exists. So you're not misleading them. You are like offering a future and creating language that hasn't even entered their mind yet. So it's really a gift that you do that when you
it's essential.
It's essential
to paint possibility pictures for people.
Yeah, it's huge.
Because that it starts to inform like, okay, well, if I could be pregnant by fall, then that means I better get to it. I better start to become that person who can step into that life. And I better start thinking like a mom.
You know, a good example, I think I heard this on like a dating podcast before like a sermon, like a dating sermon before I was married. They were like, hey, if someone told you that a year from now you were going to be married to the man of your dreams, for a single girl who's like desperate to be married, it's just like, what? And they were like, what would you do if you knew for a fact you'd be married in a year? Would you be out in the bars late at night? Would you be,
so good,
doing a bunch of crazy stuff and like not taking care of yourself? Or would you be like, man, I got to get my money right. I got to get my relationship with the Lord right. I got to get my mind right. I got to get I need to get my house right. I better clean out this house. I better clean out all this junk.
That's right.
Because I'm about to get married in a year. Like you start acting different when you start seeding a future that you're like, whoa, okay, if this were going to be true, how would I be acting right now? And so when you start casting possibilities like that, you make people start being different, which is what transforms them. And that's why the sales experience is so critical, not just to get them to buy, but for them to actually transform. Exchanging the money is step one of the sales process. Step one, you continually sell them, and how they get sold, in my opinion, determines how their transformation actually happens.
Yeah, agree.
Hey, question for you. Are you somebody who is looking to start creating content, or maybe you currently create content, but all the gear and the tech just overwhelms you? If so, I wanted to let you know about our sponsor for this podcast, Ulanzi. Whether you're creating content with your smartphone, a camera, or just trying to take your Zoom calls to the next level, Ulanzi has everything you need to make your setup look and sound professional. I've been using their gear myself, and honestly, it's been a complete game changer for my content. You can check them out at ulanzi.com/Omar, and we've got some amazing picks for you. And also, if you look at the description below, we have a special promo code that will give you 12% off your entire order. Big thanks to Ulanzi for sponsoring this episode and helping us create. So good. It's kind of why I'm not the biggest fan when people DM me and want to like learn about the inner circle and then like join from over here, because they didn't learn their way to join. And you could see the experience of the people after the fact.
Really? Yeah, it goes back to that mental
challenge.
Mapping. Like you help create this you forge new paths and pave some roads and hey, we're going to shut down that road because that's not serving anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Essentially,
so
when I would have people for season do calls for me, I would have to manage expectation after the fact. And I know there's some things you could fix in time, but I just didn't have the patience to do that. Whereas when people join from the challenge, it's like, man, they are pumped up, ready to go. And I would say it's because they're an educated buyer.
I would say they're an indoctrinated buyer.
Yeah.
Like the teachings and the beliefs just like soaked in.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because like your spirit is so strong that I know that the reason they're feeling that way is because you've helped shape like their mind and their heart. And it's not just this, like you've added more stuff for them to do, but a person for them to become.
Yeah.
Like no doubt that's why they're like that, which is amazing.
There's this phrase in my mind that I feel like is a phrase that since I got into the sales concept and stuff, and it's that you're always selling. And I think you have a video that went viral that talked about what you're like trying to backtrack.
I'm like, it wasn't about always selling, but like the video that went viral. So I'm like,
not about always selling, but
I was selling.
That the way you show up, the way you dress up, the way you carry yourself, like the language you use and stuff like that. I guess being the person, like what are things you guys did to become the person to be able to get the yeses that you're getting today?
Yeah, become the person people want to say yes to before they even know the offer.
Man.
Yeah.
People say yes to you before they even know the offer.
That's the desire. Like we
Yes.
walk in a room and people are like, I don't even know what you're buying, what you're selling, what you do, but
But
I
yes.
would be willing to pay
Yeah.
to be around you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of things.
Gosh,
Go
I
ahead.
just am having all of these reflection moments, just even going back to like before we had a good presentation, we had good conversation and all this stuff. And just, you don't have to be like this ideal version of yourself right away. Like it's something that just transpires over time. When I first started to sell, Macy had painted this vision. You can be unrecognizable in a year, just totally different person and be so proud of who you are. And I was like, cool. So like my version of stepping into that was at the time, this was 2019, doing like the dog filter on Instagram and just talk. I remember doing like this like Bible study Instagram story about like Proverbs 31 and just feeling so like inspired to talk to people. And so that's just not even the point of your question exactly, but it's always selling. It's like I'm always helping the person on the other side see who they can be, help paint that possibility picture. And then over time, it's like, okay, now I'm going to step into this next version, which is how I present myself and how I speak from stage and things like that. So yeah, like Myron actually shared this quote with us that said, everything that you do, everything you say screams either don't buy from me or buy from me, buy from me or don't buy from me. And so like to your point, it's a lot of different things. It is the words you say, it's the way you present yourself, and you can talk about that. But
because you guys dress like so cool.
Thanks, Omar.
Like, and you're like, oh, I want people when we get into any room, no matter how much people are in this room, to wonder what the heck do we do?
Yeah, it's a good way to. I mean, one of the first parts of our method is like get attention.
Yes.
And I mean, why not leverage the thing that people process what they see with their eyes like more than half of their brain. And so if you don't have anything for people to like visually process, their brain packs up and walks away and starts looking for something else to visually process.
Yep.
So whether it's your drawings that you do or slides or your arms or a prop or whatever, like just use something to visually engage people.
100%.
And listen, I'm gonna milk it all that I can.
And it's so beneficial to present yourself and to get ready. We call it like capital R ready. Like you're ready mind, body, and spirit and the fit, the drip, as you say, like make it all right. Because the craziest thing, I think everyone's experienced this, where you feel better because you look better, or you look one of the two, chicken or the egg. And so you're willing to like stop someone and say, hey, you're willing to talk to a stranger, but hey, like, where'd you get that? Or you look nice today. You're willing to step out of your own bubble and think about someone else besides you because you already know that you're good.
Yeah.
Mind, body, and spirit. And I think that's just, to me, one of the most game-changing things I felt is I don't even worry about myself.
Yeah.
When I already know I've checked all my little boxes, I don't have to worry about Kat. I get to worry about you.
Good.
And it's so cool. And I think that is the vibe that people feel when you walk into a room. Like, you take care of yourself so well, I think you're going to take care of me too.
That's right.
That's a huge principle.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, Omar, so that video did really well, but it talked about getting ready every day. But I didn't really I didn't teach any outfit stuff at all, right? I really sold them on the idea. And I think that video also did so well is because I'm so convicted in it. But do you know why I'm so convicted in it? It's because I sell people to do that every day.
Yeah.
So your original question was like, what did you do to like become the person? The selling every day, more than anything, what it has done for me is created an undeniable enthusiasm that people can look at me and they're like, she's got a crazy, crazy look in her eye. I got a twitch in my eye, And I love that. And the only reason I have that's from selling. And I'll give you an example. I remember, I don't know if you've experienced this, Omar, but when I had my epiphany moment, I was like, oh my gosh, selling is life-changing and nobody knows how to do this. I was high on life. I was like, oh, I got something that's going to change the world. Until I started selling it. Were you like that? This was like 2017 for me. But when I started selling it, all I could see is how other people had something better. Like I'd hear, you don't have to sell, use a funnel. Paid ads does it all. It's about brand. And it's like everybody's ideas were overshadowing my belief. And I would start to cower, be like, are they right or am I right? Are they better or am I better? And it would make me crumble and I would hide. But when I got back to the basics of selling, because the selling is not saying, oh, this is my program. This it's an 8-week program and you get this and this. That makes you cower down. But when I started to think about, okay, what do people get out of selling? What do people get out of selling? And like my main thing is like, you cannot be a good salesperson and not be a good person. Like if you're good at selling, you are a good person. You get your mind is tight, your spirit is tight, you care about other people. And when I would think about that, I'm like, oh man, I'm onto something. So I'd get back into my conviction when I would think about what people get out of learning how to sell.
So good.
And so the more that the selling every day, it transformed my heart so much where I dare you to try to tell me that you don't need to know how to sell. I will crush you so quick with all of my undeniable evidence because I spent so many years just selling every single day.
Right.
And that conviction, I don't have to say a word, the conviction comes through. So that alone has been worth this journey. And so, yeah, like going back to the getting ready every day is like that video did well because of the conviction.
Amen.
It's critical.
That falls under the 7 a.m. That falls under. There's a phrase and it's something I hope everybody arrives to, kind of like you did. And that is making the non-essentials seem essential.
Yeah.
And
no, not seem essential.
Essential.
So
I texted this to Art yesterday. I don't know what's happening. Okay. I texted this to Art yesterday and I put, a funnel is everything. Russell. Offers are everything. Myron. Sales are everything. Sales girls. Content is everything. Omar.
Yeah.
And like, I think we all could agree that what we do is,
that's how you know it's a good sign for who you're following and who you're listening to.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Were you about to say something
No,
else?
I was just like that. I think it's everyone's responsibility
to believe that,
to believe what you're selling and to make it essential.
Yeah.
Because usually you're selling something that's going to help your health, wealth, or relationships.
Yeah.
And so how do you make it like so important, but it has to be important to you. But I think some people just don't get excited about the thing because they've been doing it for a long time. So they've maybe lost the excitement there, but
but they've been doing it, but not selling it.
Yeah.
Selling it makes you so excited. I don't think people are so scared to sell, so they don't even really know what it feels like.
Yeah.
But you catch me off a selling on stage moment, I am high it will sustain me for a year. Like how fired up it gets me. I know you're the same way too.
Yeah, it's so fun. And that is why I'm so thankful. I think everyone should be so thankful for business being hard. Yeah. It's hard because as soon as sales are easy, you should honestly be a little bit scared that you could get complacent, right? Because if everything's just always downstream, it's like, well, where's your effort? Where's your strength coming from, right? Like salmon go upstream and they have all this like amazing like nutrients from their bones and the muscles and the fats and whatever. And so when things are just a little bit hard at first, it really starts to create who you are and that strength that no one can, like, you can't even question it, to Macy's point about the enthusiasm and the conviction. And it don't feel good at the time though, being bad at presentations, getting no's. Yeah. But it just develops you.
Yeah. I'm learning so much because, have you read have you read The Last Word on Power? I feel like not many people have read it. I really recommend it. It's very, very good. But it talks about everyone has like a winning strategy, which basically means what you think is making you win is actually the thing that's holding you back. So for example, let's say I'm a man who has been in business for 60 years and I'm like, relationships are how I built my business. And it makes me win because I have loyalty. Like my whole team has been loyal. But the problem is the business only grows to the level of the talent. And so since you're so loyal, you only have this certain level of talent. Now your business is failing because you don't have fresh talent. So what you think is making you win is actually making you fail. And it's like, okay. So everyone has like content is everything. Sales is everything. Offers is everything. And it's what's making them win. But at some point, it could be the thing that's making you fail. And that has been a huge, like, little behind the scenes, if you want, what we're like talking about behind the scenes is, okay, like we are obsessed with selling. We're obsessed with getting good at selling. Yeah. Could that be our winning strategy? Could it be the thing that is like making us not really break through to the next level? And so what's interesting is we're like, okay, let's just like rest in that we are really good at selling and we can like just know that, okay? It's okay to because I love like making the challenge better and whatever. I will spend a month refining the challenge. But like, what if that time was spent actually thinking about like, paid advertising and YouTube videos? So I told you yesterday, I was like, Omar, every day in my journal, I write, I'm a YouTuber. And it's really challenging me because I identify as a sales girl. And then what do sales girls do? They sell, baby. They get better at selling. They make that sale. You know, and being a YouTuber is a totally like different actions come with being a YouTuber. And I'm like, who am I? What am I doing? And it's like this weird in-between straddle. And even like yesterday on Russell's like steps, it was like step 1 was create offers. Step 2 was selling one-to-many. Step 3 was the funnel. And I was like, we're on step 3. Like we're on step 3 of refining and obsessing the funnel and making sure the content is good so that the funnel and the machine works. Yep. And it's just a different mind to switch on and off because I don't think about that every day. I am now. I'm thinking about YouTube and funnels and ads way more versus selling. But it's a weird transition. So we have like this whole vision for 2025 of compounding content and becoming famous and a different muscle for sure.
Yeah, and it's weird being a coach who's in this position because sales is everything, content's everything, right? But then you need to develop. And so maybe your thing is, okay, sales is everything. I'm just going to like buy into the people around me and what they're saying about sales. But you're teaching your students that content is everything. So there's kind of like this nuance of like, okay, we're in a different stage than our student. The student needs to still believe this, right? So you're selling yourself on becoming here. Your students are still trying to become here. And that's been like an interesting leadership lesson too. It has. So if someone needed to hear that, like it's okay if you're in a different position than your students. That's why you're the teacher.
And that's what has been so challenging because I'm like, we're an example of what we teach. We have to be an example of what we teach. We have to be an example of what we teach. Like even yesterday in the call, one of our girls was like, okay, I feel like I need to be like focused on being famous too. And I'm like, okay, do you feel like your content is locked in so that when you are asked on a podcast, you got something good to say? Because there ain't nothing worse than being asked to come on a podcast and it falls flat. Well, now sales girls to come again. So you want to get that sales content right so that the next step is that famous step. So it's just been a really interesting whirlwind of us being like, okay, who are we? What do we focus on? And how do we get into that rhythm where it feels as easy? Like YouTube is as easy as selling. What? That's a crazy universe. But it will be ours very soon.
Yes, it will.
Hey, that's funny how you say that because I'm the reverse. And I say that as in when I try to like unpack, like I got here because I made content that grew, but I was saying things that wasn't helping people buy. And so now it's like I'm almost growing slower, but there's more development happening in the audience that I do have. And I recognize that, but also I miss those like pop off reels and I know what I can do to make it happen. But then I'm like torn between like, do I go back and share and talk about the tech?
That's exactly the winning strategy. Like exactly.
That's it.
Like growth content and sales content are two different things.
Right.
And it's so wild how sales content is lower engaging from a vanity standpoint, but you develop people. And so they're in the DMs and they're saying, thank you so much. Like I needed that. I so badly can't wait to be in the program, or I'm so excited that I signed up. And you just realize that you're changing people's life, you know? And so there's a place for everything. And I'm proud of you for, you know, the temptation is like, no, like you feel like you're dying a little bit. You're like, I know that I could be like making a sale this way or growing this way, but slow down to speed up.
For sure.
Yeah. It's taking me a lot. Like a YouTube video will take me forever to think about the script and setting it. It'll take me forever, but I could create a sales like content in, a morning so easily. So everything's just taking a little bit longer. I'm like kind of laying awake at night a little bit more because it's like these new wires are forming in my mind. So it's been interesting.
So good.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the openness and let's talk about that on your podcast or on your guys' YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on. Can you let people know where they could find you? Let them know about
You can find us on our YouTube channel, The Sales Girls.
Jump over there.
We're The Sales Girls on all the platforms, and we would love to see you there.
Good
stuff.
And I would encourage, take their challenge. I co-sign it. And
the Sell Your Offer Challenge, it's really powerful. Like even if you are like, you know what, I just want to come and like experience it and see like how a selling one-to-many event is done and done pretty well, it'd be worth coming.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And we have conversations in our VIP room.
Yeah.
So that will be cool to see the dynamic of the one-to-one and actually how it feeds into
Yeah.
the one-to-many.
Yeah. So we'll adjust
really
on the
cool.
fly based on the VIP conversations. I'm sure you do that
Fire.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Good
fun.
stuff. Thank you guys so much. And I'll see you on your YouTube channel.
Sounds
Yay.
good.
All right.